Being an honorary guest at a film festival is of course very flattering, and I'm very proud of it. It also makes you feel rather old to be an honorary guest or something. My name is Halla Kristín Einarsdóttir and I am a filmmaker. I'm mostly been making documentaries for the past few years, but actually I started playing with film when I was at the Icelandic Art Academy, and I was doing performances, videos and performance art. There was not really any film school in Iceland, and it hadn't even entered my mind that I could actually be a filmmaker. Filmmakers were middle-aged white guys with, strange beards. At the time the Icelandic Film School was starting, and they had like courses in filmmaking, and I took one of them and I got bit by this bug, and I haven't been able to shake that since. There was not many people doing video at all. It was like, I remember when the first computer came to the Art Academy, and you could, load a minute of material into that, and then it would freeze. So we were learning to edit on like 2 VHS tape recorders, and all the women doing, or people doing video art were mostly foreigners that you learned about. I think we have a lot more female role models now than we did when I was graduating from the Art Academy. It was kind of like hard to find the female artists that you found interesting, even if they are there. You did have to look for them harder than you had to look for any other artists. A lot of my role models when I was younger were men, because the women were not in as plain sight. Steina was Sulka. That was the only female video artist Icelandic that I knew of, and of course she lived in America. At one time she came to, was a guest teacher at the academy. Not in my year, but I was attending that course anyway. Not telling anybody that this wasn't really my class. And I kind of really liked what she was doing. She is a kind of genius. I always remember when she said to us, like, okay, as artists, you should always remember once in a while to drive over the red lights. I had been making like shorts and experimental film and videos since I was at the Art Academy. But it wasn't until 2005 when Hrafnhildur Gunnarsdóttir asked me if I could make a film about the transgender situation in Iceland. So I made a film called Transplosive. Transplosive is a 25-minute film about how it is to be transgender in Iceland in the early 2000s, and it has thankfully changed a lot. But it's kind of like a little window into the situation as it was at the time. That premiered on the Hinsegin Bíódagar 2006 and was at Skjaldborg and some other festivals, but it never went to television or something. But I still hear that it's being shown in like most of the universities of Iceland, because there have not been many films made about that. But that's also like the time that I discovered that film festivals actually could have an effect. Because our guest of honor, Susan Stryker, she was of course in the Icelandic television. There was a collaboration with the university where she was speaking, and we were showing these films, and all of a sudden many more, or a few more trans persons became visible, were in interviews in the television. Few months later, Trans Iceland was established, and the Alþingi, the parliament, ordered a research on how these things were in Iceland. So the film festival kind of like had quite an effect on what happened after that in the transgender situation. And that's when I really saw, like, yes, you can change something with film. You can change something with the focus of film festivals, and you can put some agendas on the desk. I think it's very important that minority groups make films about themselves. And there are a lot of things that I would do differently about this film. I would never make that film today, because I do not come at it from a transgender point of view, even if a it was close to home. And that's why I'm very happy about that we are getting some transgender filmmakers in Iceland as well, because I think that's what will really matter. I hope you enjoy it here at the Reykjavik Feminist Film Festival. I think it's important that people from all layers of society can represent themselves in this media called film. You know, to make responsible cinema, you really have to be conscious about who you give the chance to do so. And because we need to see a much larger image of society than we actually do see in film. Like when I was growing up, most films were made by middle-aged white guys, and it kind of shaped how I saw the world. And it wasn't until I was kind of like late teens that I started to notice that there were no stories about me. You know, to make responsible cinema, you really have to be conscious about who you give the chance to do so. And because we need to see a much larger image of society than we actually do see in film. What I like about documentaries, and the ones I try to make, is to shed a light on something that is not in the mainstream media too much. Nowadays there are, for example, many more women making films. Gay people is getting kind of mainstream. We have more transgender coverage and media, and transgender people are making films themselves. So I think it's important that, you know, to give everybody a voice and everybody a visibility. In case of my documentary films, it has always been like driven by curiosity, and I think my filmmaking is always because I'm curious about something. I want to find out more, so I start to do research, and I want to look at something that I don't know and find out how it came to be, and started to look at it more. So it's kind of the process of finding out, and then how do you tell people this in an interesting way so they don't fall asleep. And I'm always very afraid of that my films are boring, so I always try to, put some candies in it. And I find it like ideas, they come to me kind of like they creep up on me, and then I just can't stop thinking about something, and then I have to take a look at it. It's like, no, this is just too much of a hassle to do that, and then it doesn't leave you alone, so you start to look into it more, and all of a sudden you're kind of like involving people, and then you really have to do something about it. So. Advice on being a filmmaker: if you don't have to, don't do it. But if you absolutely have to do it, don't let anybody tell you anything else, because there are many paths to becoming a filmmaker, and the only thing that really matters is making films. It doesn't matter if you go to film school, if you don't go to film school, what your education is, whatever, if you're a tech-savvy camera genius, or you know nothing about sound or something like that. This is something you will have to pick up kind of as you go along the way, but the only thing that really makes you a filmmaker is making films. Of course, you have to give up a lot of things if you want to work in this genre in Iceland. You won't ever be rich. You will have to maybe work a lot of other jobs of some kind, and that's fine. And I'm just still very, very glad that I'm still doing stuff, and I still find it very interesting, and I'm always like thinking about the next thing that I want to make. I want to see more girls go into cinema, and it's totally doable. Just keep making your films.